Hello and welcome to today's podcast episode of the WholeHearted Living podcast, and we are going to be diving into the immense power behind decision making. So let's get to it. So I want to introduce you to the knowledge, if you like, that decisions are incredibly powerful. And by that I mean we have likely had some experience in our life whereby we've made a decision really quickly. We've just known in that moment that that's what we want to do, or that's what needs to happen, and we just make it happen, right? That's the decision, that's what happens. And then we've no doubt got other experiences in life whereby we seem to agonise and procrastinate over making a decision, and we seem to be weighing up lots and lots of different things, and we seem to get stuck in that, listening to the many voices that can be going on in our head, that we then get lost and we're not sure which bit we should be listening to, and so then we end up either not making a decision, or it gets to the point where like the decision gets made for us, or something inevitably just tips it one way or the other. Now, if you've got the experience of both of those, stepping in fully and making a decision feels so much better than agonising and seemingly weighing up all of these different ways of making a decision. So I want to talk you through a way to almost bypass this, and to kind of make this system so much easier. So if you haven't listened to the podcast episode yet, I think it's episode 4, all about change. I'll put the link in this description. We go in depth into how we have like our human self, which I equate to our like very primal brain, and then we have this higher self. So we have access to all these higher faculties, your imagination, your creativity, and that's the bit that's also connected to your subconscious, like all these amazing bits of information that we can process subconsciously, but our conscious brain doesn't have the capacity to cope with in that moment. So there's always like these two parts of ourselves, and that's the bit that we can get stuck in when it comes to decision making. So let's ground this in an example. Let's say you feel ready for a change in your life. You have this really deep inner knowing that what you'd really like to do is leave your job and be able to work for yourself. Okay, so say that is a desire that you have, that's a dream that you have inside. And when you think about that, okay, it might feel a little bit scary, but it feels very expansive. So feeling that expansion alongside, a little bit of fear, feeling a little bit scared by that idea, is generally a pretty good sign that that's something coming from your higher self. That's, that can see the bigger picture, that is holding that bigger version for yourself and your life. So at that point, we can decide that that's enough. That, as knowing that, as having that dream and desire, can be the sign that we recognise that that's meant for us, because it's an idea that's been given to us, if you like. And so therefore, we then get to decide that I might not know how that happens at the moment. I might not have all of the details, but I can trust that this dream, this desire that I feel within me now is meant for me. Okay. I think this is, I'll do a whole other podcast episode on our dreams and desires, because it's really important to note as we go along this journey that if you have a true heartfelt desire for something, it's meant for you. Like it's there for you. We all have different dreams and desires. It's why it's really important to find what is unique for you, because someone else's dream and desire might be fulfilling for them, but it's not going to be for you, so you don't want to be following their path. So if for the sake of decision making we acknowledge that having that dream and desire, albeit that at this stage you don't know the how, you don't know the details, and it feels a little bit scary, we make the decision that having that dream and that desire is enough of a reason to make the decision that that's what we're going to go for. Because something really, really powerful happens in the body and the mind when we make a decision. I almost imagine this to be like we draw a line in the sand that goes, well, this is what I am now declaring out into the universe. This is what I am going to align my actions towards. And we almost draw that line in the sand that says, yeah, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going to go. And so the making a decision is like your declaration to yourself and to the universe that you mean business and that everything now needs to start working in alignment towards that decision. So in the case of desiring to leave your job in order to set up your own business, for example, you make the decision that that's what's going to happen. And so then you begin to align your actions towards that. You follow those intuitive nudges, those gut instincts about maybe a person that you've not thought about for years, suddenly you think about, and you give them a call, and that opens up a whole opportunity that you didn't know about before. Maybe you get prompted to read something different or to research something different, and that opens up opportunities. And so then you begin to see how the pathway begins to open up, but you have to make the decision first. Because the other alternative is you have that desire to leave your job and to set up your own business, for example, and immediately your human brain that is risk averse gives you every possible reason and excuse as to why that's not possible. Okay, it's looking back into the past, and it's got no evidence that you've ever done this before, so therefore there's no evidence that it's going to work. It's going into the unknown, and it means taking a risk, and it doesn't like that. So therefore, it's going to throw up everything that is going to try and stop you. Now, the important thing in this situation is to recognize that that's not true. That it's coming with its own bias. Okay, and that bias is to keep you where you are, in safety, in the known, and not taking any risks. It wants you in your comfort zone. So if we get caught up for too long listening to that part of us, it can end up almost like stealing all of the energy out of the dream and the desire. And so then you might end up, after a day of having that kind of part of you really on at you all day, you get to the end of the day and you're like, yeah, no, it wouldn't work anyway. It's not meant for me. And I've been in this cycle myself many times over the years. I've worked with a lot of clients who are also in this, and you can recognize the sheer deflation that happens in your body at that point. Where that initial spark of that dream and desire, albeit it feels a bit scary, it feels exciting. Like you can almost lean into the expansion that would give you. Okay, that feels, exciting, and you feel like you're literally, taking a deeper breath, and you feel that expansion. What happens when we get caught up listening too much to our very human brain is that we can feel the deflation of that. We feel the shrink that doesn't feel good to our system deep down. So, okay, it keeps us in the known and it keeps us where we are. We know deep down that that's not going to give us the fulfillment and the expansion that we're seeking here. So the way that I navigate, the way that I teach others to navigate this cycle is we want to be really careful to not demonize parts of ourselves. Okay, we are here in a human experience. We're not here to become so spiritually aware and so enlightened that we are somehow negating our very physical human experience. I don't believe that is what we're aiming for here. We want to be very much in our human experience of this world. We just want to navigate it in a way that doesn't that stops us moving forward. So we're not here to place criticism and judgment on our human self at this moment. I talk about this in another podcast episode where I very much use this as an opportunity to allow my higher self, that one that's holding the vision, the one that has access to all the information of how this dream and this desire is going to work. I allow that part of myself to almost come alongside my very human self that is freaking out at the thought of change that it can't see at the moment. And I imagine it takes it by the hand and it walks it through a really nice field or a really nice forest, and it reassures it that it's okay, that it can see something that the human self can't see right now, and that it can trust it. Okay, so that's the way that I want you to work with this. So, the human self, it's trying to protect you. It's trying to keep you in the known. Like it's doing its best. It's just there is that natural disconnect between what it can see and what your higher self can see. And to give you a visual of this, I often imagine that human self walking through the trees in a really dense forest. Okay, so it can just about see the track in front of it, and it can see hardly anything of the sky and is surrounded by the trees. But your higher self is the one that is able to almost like circle above, and is able to see all the expansiveness outside of the forest that the human self is currently in. And it can see the pathway really clearly through the forest, and it can see all of the amazingness that's ahead. So that's how I imagine it to be. And so we want our human self to follow and trust the higher self that has access to so much more information. You know, to put this into context, I think your conscious mind can process about 7 bits of information at any one time. Your subconscious is able to process like 7 trillion bits of information at any one time. So, you know, that higher self that doesn't have all the limitations and everything that the human self does has access to so much more information. So it's our ability to put our trust into it. And that begins with the decision to do that. So a really interesting exercise to do with this is to look back through your life from when you were a child to now, and you can almost plot the ups and downs, ebb and flows of your life based on when you have made decisions based on your like almost quite fearful, survival driven human self, and when you have made it from the higher self, from, you know, the dreams and desires, the expansive part of you, where, you know, you'll receive a lot more intuitive nudges, a lot more gut instinct, kind of callings, if you like, in the body. I know that when I was building up my trust muscle, if you like, of being able to step into bigger and bigger decisions, I used this as a way of reassuring my human self that whenever I made decisions that, even if I didn't know the how of it, but I just knew that that was the expansive part of me was calling me, if you like. When I made decisions on that, my life just grew so rapidly in so many amazing ways. And I've done this so often throughout my life. There's a lot of people who would look at my life and say I'm a real risk taker. I've never seen it that way, because I have I've developed such a trust of my higher self, of what it feels like in my body to have that dream and that desire, and for it to almost physically ache if I don't follow it and I don't acknowledge it. So I have become so attuned with what it feels like to honour that calling or not to, that it's, you know, like my only option is to keep following it, basically. So for me, I don't see it as taking a risk. I see it as trust. I see it as making a decision to follow my higher self rather than my human self, because I understand how those two parts of me work. And so I know that if I follow my human self, it will be more of the same, because that's what it wants. And for the me that always wants to grow and expand and be more and all of these things, I have to keep following that higher self. And so that's what I would like you, or invite you to take away from today's episode, is what it is to make a decision based on that higher self and to trust in that. Now, I'm going to caveat this, because action will always follow the decision. So it's not enough to sit where you are right now and, you know, let's go back to the example of leaving your job and starting a business and declaring that, and then nothing in your life changing. You know, you take no steps at all towards making your dream happen. We're talking here about making the decision that then aligns you to that higher self so that it can provide you with those chance encounters, intuitive nudges, gut instincts about certain things, so that you can follow the path and you have to take action. You won't be able to build up the trust in your higher self if you don't take the action. It can't do the thing for you. It's like the analogy of, you can take the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Your higher self there is to guide you. It is there providing you with probably more prompts than you could ever realize in a day. But if you're not looking out for them, if you're not honoring what that is in your body, knowing what intuition feels like, for example, in your body, if you're not then taking that action, it can't make it all happen for you. So this is my invitation to you today, is to look at your own decision making, see where you get caught up, and for almost do that life story, I guess, life chart of how it's worked for you in terms of decisions in your life. And if you can track what has been your human self decisions and what has been your higher self decisions, and what it is for you to build up the trust in the higher self. Being able to feel a dream and desire and go for that. And if you're listening to this now and you're thinking, I don't even have a clue of what that dream and desire is, then stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, because we're going to do that exploration in a future episode. So don't worry about that bit right now. Let's do the life audit and see where you're at in terms of how and what basis you use to make decisions. So as always, I love to hear from you. What were your takeaways from this episode? How does this resonate for you? And I will be back very soon with some more wholehearted living tools and techniques for you. Bye for now.